Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're diving into one of the most fascinating organizational shifts in human history. We're talking about how ancient human societies scaled up. Going from isolated river valley settlements to these massive interconnected global powers. If you've ever wondered how early readers managed the absolute logistical nightmare of ruling millions of people, with zero modern technology, by the way, and somehow didn't lose their minds, well, you are definitely in the right place. Here is our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover valleys to vast empires, the Persian playbook, India's golden age, China's Han Dynasty, connecting the ancient world, and finally, the blueprint of empire. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Valleys to Vast Empires. So to really wrap our heads around this era, we have to start with an essential question. How does a river valley civilization fundamentally differ from an empire? It's super easy to blur these two together, but they actually represent a massive, game-changing leap in human organization. Here's the key distinction. River valleys gave us complex societies. They had writing, advanced tech, bustling cities. But empires, you gotta think of them almost like ancient, sprawling multinational corporations. They were advanced societies with highly centralized governments that explicitly conquered and ruled a whole variety of formerly independent people. Basically, it's the difference between running a single successful city and running an entire continent.
Section 2. The Persian Playbook.
To see this organizational blueprint in action, just look at the sheer size of the Persian territory. King Darius solved this massive problem of scale by taking his conquered lands and dividing them into 20 distinct provinces. And to keep a firm grip on all this, he assigned a local governor, known as a satrap, to rule each specific area. These guys acted as the literal eyes and ears of the king. They collected taxes, sniffed out uprisings. It was honestly a brilliant delegation of power.
But here's the thing. Their control strategy wasn't just built on bureaucracy and military muscle. It was actually built on unprecedented tolerance. Take a look at this primary source text from the Bible, where King Cyrus decrees that the people of Judah can literally return to Jerusalem to rebuild their temple. Instead of forcing assimilation, the Persians actually allowed conquered people to keep their own languages and religions. And that dramatically reduced the friction and the rebellion that usually ends up destroying conquering nations from the inside out.
Now, to physically hold a sprawling territory like that together, you absolutely need infrastructure. The Persians constructed this massive network of roads, the most famous being the Royal Road, which stretched a mind-boggling 1,677 miles. They set up 111 relay stations with fresh horses, meaning royal messengers could shoot information across the entire empire in just 7 days. To put that crazy speed into perspective for you, a normal trade caravan would take 3 whole months to travel that exact same distance.
But, fast communication isn't enough. You also need a unified economy. So to grease the wheels of commerce, the Persians introduced metal coins with standardized values. Whether you were trading glassware in Antioch or lapis lazuli in Bactria, everyone trusted the currency. This effectively created an ancient unified economic zone that sparked massive amounts of trade.
Section 3. India's Golden Age. While Persia built physical roads, our next titan built a totally different kind of powerful philosophical foundation. Much like the Persians, the Indians realized early on that scale required structure. Starting in 321 BC, Chandragupta Maurya conquered most of the Indian subcontinent. And just like Darius, he used highly specific tactics to control his territory, dividing it all up into provinces that were ruled by local princes.
But here is the crucial pivot in this Indian case study. Chandragupta's successor, a ruler named Ashoka, completely changed the empire's governing ideology. Right in the middle of his brutal wars of expansion, Ashoka converted to Buddhism. He implemented these radical new policies of tolerance and nonviolence, literally carving Buddhist teachings into giant pillars and cliffs all across the land. And through his massive influence, Buddhism spread way beyond India's borders.
This new stability ultimately paved the way for classical India's golden age under the Gupta Empire. And as we know, when an empire finally establishes lasting peace, intellectual innovation just explodes. Indian mathematicians during this era literally invented the modern numerals you see evolving right here, along with the concept of 0, pi, and the decimal system, stuff that absolutely powers our modern world today. Oh, and on top of that, their astronomers were actually the first to discover that the Earth was round. How cool is that?
Section 4. China's Han Dynasty. Moving over to our third titan, government control in Han Dynasty China was justified by a fascinating circular concept known as the dynastic cycle. Basically, a ruling family claimed the mandate of heaven, which was essentially divine approval to rule, by establishing peace and prosperity for the people. But if the dynasty became corrupt, or if huge disasters like floods and famines hit, the people viewed this as a loss of the mandate, and this actually justified rebellion and the rise of a brand new dynasty. It was like an ancient built-in system of accountability.
To make sure they maintained peace and held on to that mandate of heaven, the Han Dynasty built an incredibly advanced government. They hired thousands of government workers, known as bureaucrats. This massive administrative engine was absolutely essential. It collected taxes, enforced laws across a sprawling territory, and oversaw massive public building projects.
And just like we saw in India, having an incredible organizational structure frees up resources for game-changing technological leaps. The Chinese master some highly guarded secrets, like silk production, which obviously became incredibly valuable. But they also invented paper making. And this wasn't just some neat little trick. Paper made books significantly cheaper, which absolutely skyrocketed literacy rates all across China.
Section 5. Connecting the Ancient World.
Okay, so we now have three massive, distinct empires all running like well-oiled machines. So, how did they link up? Well, the intense global desire for those advanced Chinese luxury goods we just talked about directly led to the creation of the Silk Road. As you trace the trade route here, you can see how this massive network snaked out from China straight across punishing mountains and deserts, eventually linking up with Indian, Persian, and Mediterranean societies.
By around 400 AD, merchants were trading exotic spices, ivory, precious stones, and of course, silks all the way to the Mediterranean world. This vast pulsing network permanently ended the era of isolated river valleys. It birthed a truly interconnected global economy where ideas, religions like Buddhism, and cutting-edge technologies flowed just as freely as the physical goods themselves.
Section 6. The Blueprint of Empire.
Now, let's bring all these historical threads together. What you should really take away from this explainer is that ruling millions of people across vast distances wasn't just a matter of having the biggest, scariest army. As we saw from Persia, India, and China, scaling up required a really delicate four-part balance. You needed a centralized bureaucracy with delegated power, you needed physical infrastructure for fast communication, a unifying ideology to keep the peace, and standardized economic trade to keep the whole empire wealthy.
I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. Looking back at the incredible achievements of these three ancient titans, consider the modern empires of today are massive global corporations and superpowers. Which of these ancient blueprints do you see them using right now? Are they relying more on infrastructure, massive bureaucracy, or maybe a unifying ideology? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through ancient history, and keep asking the big questions.